Stock futures are trading sharply lower this morning. Gold prices are lower as well. Oil prices is kind of interesting. That was actually up more at the start of the New York session, but is now giving up part of its earlier gains. I'm surprised by that because the big story today is that a lot of the energy sites in the Middle East, the key energy sites, continue to be hit. And that is making a lot of traders and investors worried. Oil markets seem to have shaken off a little bit, but clearly equity and gold traders have not. And I think that's something that's very telling. It's important to watch these correlations between these other markets. I'm Kathy Lean with BK Traders. The US dollar is mixed. It is lower against the Japanese yen. It is lower against the euro. I mean, for the most part, I would say it's lower against most of the major currencies, but it's struggling to continue yesterday's rally off of the less dovish FOMC. Now, we did have stronger U.S. jobless claims, stronger Philly Fed survey, which should have been positive for the greenback, but it has not. Instead, we're seeing gains in the euro and sterling. Now, both central banks met. Inflation continues to be a problem. They did not change interest rates, but the market is looking for at least 2, maybe even 3 interest rate hikes from the ECB and the Bank of England in 2026, which is very different from the course that the Federal Reserve is taking, where if they're thinking about, still cutting interest rates or not, they're not in a position to raise interest rates. The Bank of Japan also left their tightening bias intact last night. The yen is higher across the board. That's also consistent with the sell-off that we're seeing in stocks and a little bit of risk aversion in the markets. The Swiss National Bank is kind of different. They have been faced with a strengthening franc. And so they actually said they would not rule out the possibility, and there's actually an increased likelihood of negative interest rates. So that is actually bearish for the Swiss franc, and that is why the Swiss franc is lower across all the major currencies. They're clearly trying to talk it down, whereas the Japanese are trying to talk up the Japanese yen. So they're in 2 very different positions. We're done with all of the major rate decisions this week. On Friday, we just have some, second tier data, nothing major from the US. So I think things will start to settle down, and I think the Middle East crisis will continue to worry investors. The main takeaway from this week's central bank rate decisions is that inflation is here. Inflation is a problem. Inflation is a worry for these central banks. And maybe we as traders and investors should be worried as well. I'll try to keep you all updated. Have a great trading week.